What's up, family? Welcome back to another legendary reaction video. Let's go.
When discussing the best players of all time, the best MVPs, one guy at the top of that list is Michael Jordan from 1988, as not only was the MVP, but also the Defensive Player of the Year. Now, that 88 season was nearly 40 years ago, and with so much time passing, the myth of Jordan kind of fading. You have people coming out of the woodwork saying he was overrated, his era was overhyped, and his
Why do you think people, family, are coming out the blue saying he's overrated all of a sudden? After all these years that have passed, man. What? Jordan played what? 40 years ago since being with the Bulls and so forth? Or since retiring or something like that? Or joining the NBA?
stats were inflated. Case in point, Tom Haberstroh of Yahoo Sports.
I just read up on this. I actually had it pulled up on my tablet here. Hold up. Excuse me. So I just had it pulled up on my tablet. Excuse the music. But I was just reading that yesterday morning in regards of Michael Jordan being overrated. What up? Michael Jordan YouTube. Excuse me, family. Jordan. Okay, so I have it pulled up here. So basically, he's saying a closer look at Michael Jordan's, as you can see on the same screen that he's seeing over here from Tom Haberstroh. It may be the most consequential Defensive Player of the Year award in NBA history. In 1987-88, Michael Jordan became the first player ever to win scoring title in the same season. The DPOY award, which is the Defensive Player of the Year award, represented a certain validation for the 25-year-old phenom. Before Jordan was crowned, he was crushed. Drafted by the Bulls 40 years ago this week, which I was right, Jordan had developed a certain level of notoriety for being too focused on scoring, and this was going down to them saying that he's just a scorer, and it got on Jordan's nerves because he felt like he was a complete player and he had to show and prove that. And obviously the award was one of his accolades for him to prove that he's not just a scorer, he also can play defense, right? You know, and then the award also delivered generational power. It gave Jordan something that LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Magic Johnson never had. But a closer look at Jordan's 1987-88 season reveals a substantial discrepancy between his home and road statistics, raising questions about the authenticity of his off-the-chart steals and blocks. Considerable evidence, both statistical and corroborating video, suggested that Jordan's Defensive Player of the Year may not be as valid as we thought. You know, so... And then it goes in more and more, but I'll let him explain more in the video.
Now, looking at this article that went viral, the main claim is that Jordan 88 by the home stat keepers has numbers inflated and just kind of doctored to win the Defensive Player of the Year. And before we dive into that very quickly, Tom Haberstroh's article was framed as a LeBron versus Jordan article, not just Jordan solely.
It is.
The
It
goal
is
is
actually framed as a LeBron versus Jordan. You know, I feel like LeBron is always going to be up in question when it comes to this GOAT conversation just because it brings a good conversation.
Main objective is to knock Jordan down a peg and LeBron James up a few. And my first big time gripe with the article, when saying Jordan's stats were doctored and inflated, 80% of the article was citing sources of other stat keepers on different teams in different decades. For example, this guy Alex Rucker with the Grizzlies in 1996. No connection to Jordan, the Bulls, or even the 80s. Now, what Alex Rucker does claim is that a guy like John Stockton's assists were inflated by Utah stat keepers, which is a pretty bold claim. Now, that is a claim, but if you want to look at actual game film, something this article doesn't have, look at LeBron James' 2018 Cavs vs. Raptors in Cleveland. LeBron in this game had 17 assists at that point, the highest mark of his career. And just go to the first quarter off the bat. A lot of LeBron's assists, let's just say, very loosely defined as assists. I mean, look at that one to George Hill right there. A glorified outlet pass at half court. Hill takes a couple of dribbles, a couple of steps, makes a layup. That is a quote-unquote assist in the modern era.
Right.
Now look at this one. Kevin Love, a pick and pop, catches, pump fake, kind of a jab, dribble, and shot. For LeBron James, that was an assist. My overall point being, looking at any era, there can be questionable steals, assists, just questionable.
Okay, so he's generalizing it, basically saying that, there can be questionable things that take place, as there are always questionable things now. There's always questionable things when it comes to style and play. You have referees. Sometimes they're wrong. They're not always right. They do their best to make the right calls as much as possible. Nowadays, they have challenges in the NBA. I don't feel like they had that back then where you challenge plays, and I think you only get a couple challenges. I'm not sure how many. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe 2 or 3. Comment down below. But basically, he's basically saying there could be a lot of questionable things that took place statistical-wise. If you want to just come at Michael Jordan, then you can come at the whole thing. And that is true because LeBron is known for flopping. A lot of those charges, from an offensive end from the opponent that he was going against could have been not charges. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people flop in and now it's sort of taken away from the actual hard hit foul, sacrifice hit that you take for the team, because some people are just trying to get away with finessing the system so they can get back on offense and score and win the game, obviously.
That's across the board. And looking back at Jordan, the main point of this article, what Haberstroh says, the narrative he creates, is that Jordan 87 was pissed, he didn't win the Defensive Player of the Year over Michael Cooper. So coming into 88,
Michael Cooper was a good defensive player, even though he couldn't stop Bird. He couldn't stop Larry Bird now.
To win the award, rack up steals, as well as blocks. And the article heavily implies Jordan 88 was undeserving of the DPOY. And first, looking at 88, Jordan's overall ranks, not looking at steals or blocks. Defensive plus minus, he ranked first. Defensive win shares, ranked second. And defensive rating, ranked fourth. The guy who finished second behind Jordan 88, it was Mark Eaton. And comparing Eaton versus Jordan in those categories, MJ comes out on top every single time. Now, going back 1 year to 87, it was basically Jordan versus Cooper for the DPOY. Now, Jordan, defensive win shares, ranked third. Defensive plus minus, ranked sixth. Steals was second. Blocks 15th, but for guards, ranked first. Compared to Michael Cooper, the DPOY winner, Jordan surpassed him in all those stats. However you slice it with MJ, either 87 or 88, I'd argue both years, was the rightful Defensive Player of the Year. And looking back at these stat-juicing allegations, Michael Jordan 87, before these allegations started, 2.9 steals, or scoring-wise, 37 points on nearly 28 shots, which is a pretty heavy offensive workload. Now,
that is an offensive workload. I felt like Michael Jordan at times did have to carry the offensive workload. I feel like, obviously, Jordan played defense, but then I believe, comment down below, family, is this before Dennis Rodman came along with his valuable defense, as valuable as he is? Or was, I'm curious. I want to see something. Was Dennis Rodman, when did Dennis Rodman, or Rodman, I should say, sorry. Put respect on the man's names. He joined the Bulls in 1995. Okay. Well, he just added more valuable defense, but he did always have, I feel like, the offensive workload. And then Scottie also was, his partner, his his teammate. They came together. They had their little duo. But,
logically thinking, not just looking at numbers.
I was going to say that if Dennis Rodman didn't join before 1960 or 1987, 1986 to 1987 or 1986 to 1988, I was going to say, obviously, without the value of Dennis Rodman, he did great with the defensive thing, because he had to step it up, as he always had the offensive workload to take on, especially in these years of the season. But that's not true, because Dennis Rodman already joined. So he just added more value to his defense. I just feel like he challenged himself to be a better player, because the narrative about him just being a scorer was out there, and he wanted to show that he has different skills and he has different skill sets, and let alone could be more valuable than the way that the world is trying to view him as
Michael
or limit
Jordan,
him.
88, got Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. So with that being the case, Jordan, his shot attempts came back down to 24.4 and his scoring went down to 35. Now, what went up were his steals from 2.9 to 3.2. Now, logically thinking, is it so insane that Jordan offensively took a step back to focus more on defense? I mean, a jump from 2.9 steals to 3.2 isn't some massive improvement. And again, Jordan 88 had added motivation to being snubbed from 87. Now, one thing Haberstroh is really obsessed with is the home stats versus the away stats, and the overall discrepancy in steals as well as blocks. But one thing this guy ignores, just never talks about, is the NBA in the late 80s, even the early 90s. The road trips, the travel was extremely tough.
Yeah, I believe I feel like the getting was more tough back then in basketball versus now. Now, a lot of these guys, they got a suite. I mean, look at their salaries alone. The hunger is not there as much as it used to be. And if anything, the hunger is there more with national players than actually the American players that's in the league. You know what I'm saying? Look at Jokic. Look at the Joker. Look at Luka Doncic. You know what I'm saying? The hunger is there. You got Jaylen Brown. He's American, but the hunger. But you don't see a lot of hunger. You see a lot of national players being more hunger than it is now. And the only narrative that's keeping the NBA alive right now is more so they bounce off LeBron. When LeBron leave, I mean, obviously you got Jason Tatum. They already been working on him being the face, and Luka Doncic and Joker. They obviously keep it excitement. But where's the NBA gonna go from now on? But I feel like back then, what I'm saying is, it was a lot of dogs. Everybody was hungry. A lot of great players came in after Larry Bird and Magic. You had the Jordan, you had the Patrick Ewing, you had a lot of great guys that had hunger within the USA.
The Bulls' first road trip in 88. November 23rd to December 5th.
Longer games, longer
13
travel.
days, 8 games, 3 back-to-backs. That's an absolutely brutal schedule that in the modern NBA, you rarely, if ever, see.
Thank you.
Now, compare that to the Bulls' first long homestand, December 29th to January 12th. 15 days, 6 games,
0
back-to-backs, and no travel. I don't care if you're a pro athlete, stay-at-home parent, work at Walmart, Target, or Subway.
A pro athlete, stay-at-home parent.
Having days off just kind of refuels you and makes you much, much better when you return to your job or your sport. And for the NBA, rest is it's paramount to success. And throughout the entire article, this guy has fancy graphs, fancy numbers, but just basic things like rest are never taken into account with the road versus home stats. And going one step further, looking at the 88 Bulls. Home games with 0 days rest. They had 6. Road games, the same criteria, 14, more than double.
Sheesh.
Now, home games, road games with 1 day of rest. At home, 23. On the road, 18. Games with 2 days of rest. At home, the Bulls had 12.
Just imagine. So I get what he's saying. This guy right here, this guy, Tom, on the Yahoo, reported, he's being hypothetical, but not taking in other things that can factor in, like rest, home versus away. He's just worrying about home stats. And then on top of it, back then, these guys, if I'm like even listening to Larry Bird, they was playing even when they weren't playing on the court, or playing on the NBA or playing games home and away. They were playing still every single day. You know what I'm saying?
On the road,
Most
had
of the
9.
time.
What you have right
great.
there is a pretty clear picture that Chicago at home versus on the road had much more rest. And to kind of tie this to present day players, look at Luka Doncic the NBA scoring champ in 2024. Luka with 0 days rest, 29 points per game, 44% shooting, all full from deep.
I bet you when he does get a day of rest, he probably averaged 30 plus per game.
Game sample size. Now, Luka with 2 days rest.
Exactly. Look at his field goal percentage. Look at his points per game. Come on, man. It's showing.
29 points to nearly 35. Field goal percentage up by 4.5%. 3 percentage up by 7%. That sample size is 11 games, roughly similar to the 9 games with 0 days rest. If you're looking for a more logical conclusion, a more rational conclusion, it's that players with more days of rest, they perform better, specifically at home. That's true for Luka Doncic, LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, really any player in league history. And looking at 88 Jordan with that much needed rest, at home versus on the road, more points per game, more assists, boards, steals, and blocks, and his field goal percentage up by 5%. If only Jordan's steals went up at home and that was it, the points were down, assists, boards were all down, then it might be a little bit fishy. But his home stats just drastically better than his road stats. And Tom Haberstroh, to his credit, has tons of stats, numbers, data, and really fancy spreadsheets.
Home steals, road steals. Think about it. Michael Jordan had 165 home steals, 94 road steals. Alvin Robinson had 98 road steals, 145 home steals. Isn't it evident that everybody from Nate McMillan down within the 60s, well, Nate McMillan skipped Derek Harper, but everybody from Nate to Maurice Cheeks all the way down are in the 60s, just about, or close to the 60s, because they're away. So basically, let's be real here. If you want to sit there and really go into deep just to have this interesting Yahoo Sports article, a closer look at Michael Jordan's 1988 Defensive Player of the Year award raises questions about its validity, then let's take into consideration how he did earn Defensive Player of the Year from both ends and also add up the stats from being home and away. Obviously, it's self-explanatory, but don't make it like, oh, at home he done great, but away he doesn't do great. So why should he have this award? That's just foolish. That's just ignorance, because now you're not factoring other things. You got to add context to it. And I feel like that's what this video is saying that we're reacting to. You can't sit there and say something so general and then just try to raise a question just because you want to spark someone's interest and raise a question about someone's validity when the accolade speaks for itself, let alone you're not factoring in or adding a context to anything else, but making it a Michael Jordan versus LeBron. And if you want to be more technical, LeBron, in a way that, medicine, in a way that, therapies and time has evolved, let alone the technology from now and then, why do you think LeBron is so sustainable and still have that more of a longevity versus a Larry Bird and Michael Jordan? Obviously, because things have changed. We as humans became more educated and more knowledgeable on how to bring more value to the players, but also help them to be nutritiously educated, being well rested. Mental health is taken into consideration nowadays. So add all the context. Back then, it was just playing games at the game, at the game, at the game. You ice on the road, you ice, do what you got to do and get back to it. A lot of these guys was playing. But look, Michael Jordan flu game. Larry Bird, broken back. Knee pain, leg pain, all of that. And played through it all. So it's like, come on, man. This man played in a hard grit era of the NBA. And it was way harder back then. And way rougher and actually hard grit basketball rather than this soft, sensitive, tasty cake basketball that we got now. Nowadays, everybody want participation points when it comes to the NBA, the current NBA. Back then, you had to actually earn it. and you had to earn your salary. These guys getting thrown salaries bigger than ever. For example, look at what's his name? He plays for where he plays for. What's his name? I think he played for the Pelicans. Zion Williamson. My man can't keep his weight up or down. He can't decide. Getting thrown so much money, does it really matter to him? You know, so add context before you go question somebody's credentials. And respect this man for what he has done in the game. Let alone took the business venture of basketball with the shoe brand deals to a higher level, which Larry Bird and Magic Johnson introduced. You know what I'm saying? So
when I look at each of these graphics, they're all sort of kind of tweaked for its own narrative to varying degrees. For example, look at this one. Home stats, blocks and steals versus road stats, blocks and steals. And the players listed are DPOY winners. Now, of course, Jordan ranks first with the biggest differential, home versus road. Now, what Haberstroh doesn't understand, can't really comprehend, is this list, it's mainly big men. Mark Eden, Ben Wallace, Jaren Jackson, Metta World Peace, Ben Wallace, and Dennis Rodman. When you're talking basketball, what's easier to get? A steal in the passing lane or a shot block at the rim versus a 7-foot big. Obviously the steal on the perimeter. And for Jordan, how he played, much like Alvin Robinson, aggressive, jumping the passing lanes, and trying to get easy steals for layups. But for this graphic, Tom Haberstroh makes it steals and blocks. Now, the thing with Robertson, a great guy in the passing lanes to get steals, but shot blocking wise was kind of a 0. His career high in shot blocks for a season was 0.5, when Michael Jordan is highly regarded as one of, if not the best shot blocking guards in league history. And if you take blocks out of it, just look at steals. Robertson 86 on the DPOY. At home, 4.4 steals per game. Jordan 88 only averaged 4. Now, Robertson on the road was 2.9. So think about that. Tom Haberstroh in this article on purpose omitted the stat and didn't highlight it. And for his graphic, tweaked it ever so slightly, making it steals and blocks. The entire goal of the article is looking at steals by themselves. Now, why he didn't do that is Robertson and Jordan, their numbers, home versus away, look eerily similar. Now, that right there is my last point, but I'll finish it with this one thing. Let's say Jordan's stats, his numbers, steals, blocks,
he wanted to tweak the narrative of his story on Yahoo Sports to make his point. Well, he didn't add the context of home and away games to really see the overall scenario. You know, you gotta add context. You want to talk about the picture of steals and all of that in defense. You need to look at it from both ends. That's like you can't. If you guys looked at a player from one end of the court offensively, you can't just go off that because you got to look at both ends. That's like you saying, "Oh, Steph Curry is a great offensive player." Okay, but defense wins games, right? Let's go back to the basics, man. Without no defense, how are you even going to get down to the other end offensively to get the ball down there if no one's playing defense? Obviously, if they score, they're going to get the ball, but I'm saying you have more chances to gain the lead by playing defense to get some stops before you can play offense. So defense come first, but my man just wanted to basically pick and choose certain information in regards of stats to fit his narrative and not add the whole context. And that's misleading, you know.
Doctored, they're fake. At the end of the day, what does that change? Michael Jordan, still a 6-time champion, 5-time MVP. The shot over Russell still happened. The flu game still happened.
Exactly.
Shot over Elo still happened. Shrug game still happened. Averaging 41 versus the Suns still happened. What I see from Haberstroh is a desperate attempt to bring Jordan back down to reality and really put LeBron James ahead of him. And the way he went about doing this with selective graphics, selective stats, was just downright slimy. And I guarantee you if I look at LeBron James, a Steph Curry, guys in the current era, I can find assists and steals that were kind of inflated and boosted up by the stat keepers and looseness of the modern NBA. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Out.
Yeah, man. Also, I believe it's just disrespectful to the people that came before the people that's playing in the modern NBA. How could you do that? I don't know. But at the end of the day, you can't pick and choose, man. The game is the game, and that's why all the skill sets matter. That's why all the skill sets are being looked at. Don't pick and choose certain skill sets to look at to fit your narrative. Just like if a player needed to be, if the player is obviously joining one of the team or one of the franchises, they have to see what skill sets matter, but also they challenge the player to continue to work on their weaknesses of their other skill sets, because at any given moment, you might got to step up, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below your take on it. How did you feel about the reporter being very selective stat-wise and being a bit slimy? Comment down below. I'm curious to see you guys' perspective. Do you think it's disrespectful to Jordan legacy? Do you think it's disrespectful to the people that came before, the people that's in the modern NBA? And I feel like it's just very disrespectful to, in my opinion, one of a pioneer of the game. I mean, it's kids to this day that Michael Jordan still influence and still will begin to influence just by picking up his shoe. You know, a lot of people will start getting curious of who made the shoe, and obviously his name will live on as it should, just like the rest of the greats before Jordan. But on that note, family, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Until next time, peace.